25-year-ago project, Computers Now and Then. Now, the computers are more high-tech and they're so much better and faster. Then, the computers 25 years ago were bigger and not high-tech. The difference. These computers are different because the old ones are bigger because they look like a box. And the latest high-tech ones are smaller and look like a thin book. They move faster now.
Video games from the 1980s. WWE 2K14 is a game that came out in September 2013. It is also a fun game. Madden 25 is a football game that came out in 2013. Pac-Man is 34 years old. Super Mario Bros. Is a game that is still made today. For example, Nintendo came out with Super Mario Bros. 2 last year. The difference between the now and then is that Pac-Man and Super Mario Bros. Were created in the 1980s, while WWE 2K14 and Madden 25 were created last year. Also, the newer games have better graphics. One more reason is that WWE 2K14 and Madden 25 are sport games, while Pac-Man and Super Mario Bros. Are classic arcade games and Game Boy games. Old and new cars. This is an old car from 1989. It is a Nissan S-Cargo. This is a 2012 Renault Alpine sports car. 2015 cars have top speed and can go really fast. They are top quality. They look better and have good fuel mileage. The older cars weren't as fast and use more gas than the old cars do now. Not to mention they weren't as aerodynamic.
Toys from the Past and the Present by Oscar, Kendra, Jesse, and Jackie. Nowadays there are toys like Apple products, Furbies, and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle products. Then, there were many toys back in the 80s, such as Polly Pockets, Game Boys, Easy Bake Ovens, and Super Soakers. The difference. Toys from the 1980s were different from the toys we have today, though the toys we have today are still quite similar to the toys from 25 years ago. For example, we have Game Boys today, but they are different than the ones we have from the past.
Phones by Vanessa Olson, Emma, Bailey, Alden, and Alan. The phones we have now have a touchscreen, and you can have apps and you can text people. The phone used to be very different from the ones we have now. The phones we used to have in the 1980s were large and you could only call. The phones in the 1980s were large and you could only call with them, and the phones we have now are small and you can have apps. Also, you can text and call with them.
Fashion now and then. Now, this is what girls wear now. This is what boys wear now. This picture is what girls and boys used to wear on a daily basis. Back then, they wore a lot of plaid and long sleeves, but now people wear a lot of sparkles and suits and ties. The difference between 25 years is that back in the late 80s, they liked the leg warmer and the plaid, but now in 2000 we like the dress ties and things like that.
Hairstyles. Now, this is a hairstyle from today. It doesn't have as much gel or curls. Then, this is an 80s hairstyle. It is way different from now. It has more curls, curly hair, and more gel. The difference. Today's hair isn't as poofy as the 80s. 80s hair is more poofy and they used more gel.
Books then and now. These are some books from 2000 to 2014. Most of these books have won awards. Today's children's books are far easier to read than books from the 80s because they have more easy-to-read text. Books from back then. These were some books from the 1980s. As you can see, these are some really old classics. Most picture books then were drawings. Today there are more computer drawings and animations. Books from the 1980s and 2000s are different because books from the 1980s have far less computer drawings than books today.
Shoes by Marika Kroon, Donja Lemeray, Will Heinrich, and Ian Earl. Now, these shoes are synthetic material. Then, these shoes are really fancy because they are from the 1980s. The shoes from the 1980s have awesome designs and are made out of expensive fabrics. Even though the fabrics are expensive, most of the shoes were really quite cheap, but not all shoes back then weren't cheap. The difference is that shoes today are made out of synthetic material and shoes back then were made out of real leather or other materials. Another difference is that shoes today are more expensive than they were today. But some of the shoes are still the same, but the reason they have changed, well, we don't know.